you everyone for joining us today, and particularly to Deakin's Virtual Open Day. I'm here to chat to you particularly about forensic science at Deakin. So my name's Annalisa Durdle and I'm part of the teaching team here. First of all, obviously, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. I recognise that you might be streaming in from anywhere at Warm Ponds campus. So I'd like to acknowledge and show my respect to the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. So I'm going to chat about a few things in this session, and we'll be covering wider study at Deakin, but particularly obviously wider study forensic science at Deakin if you think that's right for you. So I'll discuss a bit about the course itself and the kind of practical experiences we offer, and what the career pathways that you might actually be able to go down once you complete these degrees. So I will touch on the entry requirements, but I do realise you might have some questions that come up as I go through. So pop those questions in the question panel you see down the side, and me and the rest of the team will be happy to answer those questions after the session. Now, I'm sure as if you're coming to university for the first time in particular, you would have looked into the various different universities, checking out which one's right for you. That's really important. Here at Deakin, we are really well rated for our student experience in particular. There's student experience surveys that are done, and I think basically the reason that people have a really good time here is that we have a lot of student societies and associations here. You can make lifelong friends, and I know, it's overwhelming times, and in particular, if you're moving away from home for the first time and things, those kind of communities are really important. And we also have a lot of support services as well. But obviously, it's not all about the party. We do have really good ratings for actual educational experience and the learning resource too. And I'm particularly stoked to see that the teaching quality rates highly as well. And we'd really like you to come here and learn with us. So in terms of the forensic science at Deakin, there's basically two things you can do. You can do the straight Bachelor of Forensic Science, or you can combine that with a Bachelor of Criminology, and that gives you that double degree there. We have within the science two major streams. So we have the forensic biology and the forensic chemistry. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that involves and the choice of majors a little bit later on as well. But it's important here to stress this is a Warm Ponds campus degree. The reason for that is we've got specialised facilities up here, including the crime scene house, that aren't available on the other campuses. And a lot of our degree is centred around real practical learning experiences. So you can kind of commute up if you're living in Melbourne, or you can move up to Geelong, obviously, as well. But you do need to be on campus for those experiences. And that's also why we can't offer these forensic science experiences as an online course either. So let me introduce you to the teaching team. At the moment, we've got Xavier Conlon. He's our resident chemist, forensic chemist here. These two lovely ladies, Natalie Gaz and Michelle Harvey, their expertise is actually forensic entomology. It's all about the bugs and the decomposition side of things too. And Bianca Scudder and myself, our expertise is in forensic biology, and so the DNA transfer and DNA aspect of all that sort of side of things as well. So forensic science, I'm sure you know, is the application of science to the law. So I really want to emphasize the point here that this is actually a science degree with, I guess, a forensic flavor, because in order to be a good forensic scientist, you must be a good scientist. And forensic science may be different around the world in terms of different jurisdictions and how they run that, but it's the science that is consistent all the way through. We have a really strong focus on the practical training. So we want you to be able to leave and go into laboratories and be really comfortable with with handling laboratory training in terms of the crime scene house, so kind of being comfortable with collection of evidence and that sort of thing as well. We make the course is very holistic. So from what I mean by that is we're looking from the crime scene all the way through to the courtroom. So you'll have experiences investigating a crime scene, collecting evidence in the appropriate way, taking it through to the labs and analyzing it, and then communicating your findings, and eventually that experience of presenting your findings in court as an expert witness. So this isn't on the first day. We work you up to that throughout the course, and you're going to develop this really set of skills that are really specific to forensic science, but you're also going to be developing those general science skills, which are the major component of the course. So you may end up in an associated career or a different career, but we want you to have those skills such as critical thinking and analysis, teamwork and communication, and excellent record keeping, all these kind of things that will be really useful to you in whichever career pathway you end up taking. So you might be thinking, oh, it's good to say you've got all these things. We'll kind of prove it. And we do that through our accreditation. So we're the first university in Australia to actually get the accreditation of our course, and the only one in the Asia Pacific region to actually have that. So what this means is that we have an accrediting body. This is the Chartered Society of Forensic Sciences. They're a completely independent body. They're actually based in the UK, and they hold us to account. So they do survey visits, and basically every year or two, they go through all of our course. They look at what we're teaching, what equipment we've got. They make sure that what we're teaching is relevant and up to date, and that we're teaching the best possible way. And we're very proud of the fact that we always get commendations, and we're actually held up as an exemplar by our accrediting body. We often give presentations to other educational institutes on how to deliver forensic science. And also exciting for us, RACI, Royal Australian Chemical Institute, has also, we've just recently got accreditation through them for the chemistry aspect of our course as well. So again, held to account and held to a high standard for what we offer in our degrees. So this is the basic course structure. So you're going to have 12 credit points in core units, and these are very much the science units that I'm talking about. So regardless of whether you're doing the forensic biology or forensic chemistry stream, you'll get a taste of both in the core units in terms of science generally. There'll also be career units, and there'll be kind of statistics and things like that you'll need as a scientist. Then you'll choose the forensic major that you're interested in, and you'll have 6 credit points in that particular major, the major units. And so that will be kind of related to the forensic aspect of what you're doing. Then there's also 6 credit points in elective units. So certain criteria here, but you can basically do some units that might kind of support or complement the major units that you're doing, or you might choose to do something very different, but it's just an area of interest to you, just to kind of give yourself that variety within your education. Now, I do want to point out at this point, if you're doing the straight Bachelor of Forensic Science, you can actually do a double major. So that means that you can do the forensic biology and the forensic chemistry at the same time. So essentially what you do is you'll have, say, your major in forensic biology, and then for the elective units, you take those 6 majors in forensic chemistry as well. And if you are thinking of a lab-based career, I really think this can be a really good way to go, because it gives you basically a broader range of options career-wise. You've got that wider scientific scope. Unfortunately, you can't do that if you're doing the double degree. So if you're doing the Bachelor of Forensic Science and the Bachelor of Criminology, you don't actually have enough elective units in there to take all 6 credit points of the alternate major there. But you could certainly do some of those if you have an interest in that alternate stream as well. So your course map is going to look something like this. You can certainly talk to a student advisor, specifically how it will look for you. But you can see all these the core units here. So you're getting some, biology and chemistry in there as well. We also do have some forensic units in there that we want all of our students to be doing, regardless of stream. And then your majors will come in your second and third year, but your kind of electives are popping around there as well. And these are the kind of units that you'll actually be doing in the different streams. And so you can see how, your chemistry is looking very much, you'd be going down pathways potentially of drug analysis, toxicology, fire and arson examination. And these are the specific kind of disciplines, gunshot residue, all these kind of things would be aligned with the forensic chemistry. And then forensic biology, a lot is to do with the DNA aspect, genomes, bioinformatics, all very relevant topics to the kind of biology degree career if you go down that pathway. So we actually have quite a few students who do the double degree. It's good because you'll get that science background, but you're also kind of getting the arts side of it as well. So this can be really valuable in terms of your career choice if you're thinking more of a career path in corrections, for example, or law or something to do, if your career pathway is kind of going down that direction. We do have some students who ask the question about, they think maybe the criminology is going to give them increased opportunities in terms of actual laboratory work and things. They're actually two very different types of study. So the forensic science, if you're leaning towards purely just a laboratory thing, can be very interesting to do the criminology side, but it's not necessarily something they look for in a laboratory role. But like I say, if you're looking more into the criminology side, like corrections and things, very valuable. And also, I personally am very interested in the motivations behind criminal behaviour, so it can actually be just a really interesting way to supplement the forensic science aspect as well. So what are your learning experiences with us? We do have a lot of guest speakers. We get them from industries such as Victoria Police, Victoria Institute of Forensic Medicine, Australian Federal Police, various industry partners that come, and they might talk to you about cases, or they might talk to you about their career path, or they may actually be educating you about their particular area of expertise. I've mentioned the crime scene house. I'll touch on that a little bit later as well. So you do have that practical experience in crime scene work, and the laboratories, both chemistry and biology too. Later on in your third year, you'll be doing moot courts, and a lot of our units have a real teamwork aspect to it, and that's important because as a forensic scientist, you often work as a team in terms of, at a crime scene, or, peer checking other people's work and in the laboratory and stuff. And teamwork is a very important aspect of a lot of careers as well. And depending on the units you do, there may actually be little research projects involved in there as well. So like I said, our crime scene house is at the Waurn Ponds campus only, which is why this is a Waurn Ponds degree. You can see we take it seriously. You're going to be dressed up in the full gear that you would be using if you're at an actual crime scene. So no, these people aren't kind of COVID workers. They're actually forensic scientists, and so this is the experience that you'll be getting there. And in relation to our crime scene house, we actually have Victoria Police and, for example, Corrections Dog Squad. They actually use our crime. And in addition to that, we have a decomposition field. So we do have, for Michelle and Nat particularly, doing their research and also teaching students up on the decomposition field about the various stages of decomposition and what might affect that. But we do the full range, collection of evidence, testing for drugs and all that sort of stuff in the crime scene house and the decomposition field. In terms of communicating findings, that's a really important aspect. And we have to communicate to a lot of different audiences. So it might be fellow forensic scientists. It might be the courts where people are educated but don't have any experience in science whatsoever, education and don't have any experience in science, and maybe their only forensic experience is CSI. So we try and cover a lot of these different aspects, or we do cover a lot of these aspects in delivering our unit, our courses. So you might be doing forensic statements, you might be briefing detectives, you're presenting evidence in court. We also do poster presentations, and that's because a lot of forensic scientists, even if you're actually working as a practitioner rather than a researcher, will do research within their role. And so they'll go to symposiums and conferences and present their work, maybe orally, but also as a research poster. So we encompass that as well. And we want you to be going out work ready, okay? And that's in whatever career pathway you take. So certainly in terms of forensic science, we make our experiences very authentic by protocols, and everything else relates to what Victoria Police use in their forensic laboratories. And when I say relate, it's basically identical, so you know what it's like working in a forensic laboratory. Now, I've mentioned earlier, different jurisdictions do things differently, but the science is always the same, and the setup is very similar. So that gives you a really authentic experience regardless of where you might end up. I've mentioned the transferable skills, so you can take that to you know, many different industries or many different career paths. We building a lot of that career element into the Bachelor of Forensic Science, and the Bachelor of Criminology has that too, in terms of getting you to recognise what your skills are, building on them, and you know, this will culminate in a placement. Now, our placements will be in scientific laboratories. Hopefully, we're still building on this. We're very limited in terms of placing people into forensic science laboratories because there is a very real concerns around confidentiality and things like that in those laboratories. But as I mentioned earlier, it's all about the science. So you can get a lot of really good skills in the placements in scientific laboratories. We have very strong connections with the Victoria Police Forensic Services Department, Victoria Institute of Forensic Medicine, Australia Federal Police, other industrial laboratories. All of the teaching team do research with various organisations, particularly Victoria Police, and so we maintain that connection. That keeps us relevant. And we also have an advisory board that's made up of a lot of industry people, including the ones I've just mentioned there, but also lawyers and you know, kind of forensic overseeing bodies and things like that. What they really want the graduates to have, what will be really, so we take their advice on board when we're developing units and updating our courses, and keeping ourselves relevant as well. We also have a really good DUFS, Deakin University Forensic Society. You'll be with like-minded people there. So that's something that they're a very active student body, got some great social stuff that gets that they have organised that get all our forensic science students together. So very much recommend, if you're going to be actually be joining us at Deakin, kind of get on board with them, and yeah, they're a really good crew. Our professional body in terms of forensic science in Australia and New Zealand is what we call ANSFS, so Australia New Zealand Forensic Science Society. They have a student membership, I think it's $40 a year. But this ANSFS actually runs presentations every couple of months. You go along. We've started going face-to-face again, which is great. DUFs actually always have a really good contingent that turn up there as well. And it's really good. You'll always have someone from the teaching team there who can introduce you to all kind of industry people that have turned up. And they've had presentations from judges to the dog squad to all these different really interesting presentations that really give you an insight. But it's a really good chance to network early on, get to know forensic scientists, and kind of get a really good idea of what's involved in the career. So obviously, what are you going to do when you come out of the course, or what are your opportunities? We, you know, it's sad reality. Not everyone's going to get a job in forensic science because there's just not that many jobs. But that doesn't mean that you can't go down into other associated careers. You can certainly be doing jobs in other aspects and waiting for forensic science roles to come up. But we do actually place a lot of students, or we don't place them, but our students on their own merit get jobs with particularly Victoria Police Forensic Services Department, the police and the Federal Police. For example, at the Victoria Police Forensic Services Department, we've got students in the biology area, and fingerprints, and fire and arson, in property management and hazardous chemicals. There's people all across the board there, and they're all graduates. And VicPol love us for the quality of the students that they're coming their way. We've also students who end up as police. That in Victoria, if you want to be doing that crime scene work, where that's the main body of your work, major crime scene, you have to actually be a sworn police officer. For other jurisdictions, it's different, but that's also why some of our students go into the Victoria Police Academy. There's also, we have the Australian Federal Police. We've got students who are not only in Melbourne, but they're also in Canberra and Sydney and various places in the AFP, in both crime scene and also kind of the intelligence side of things as well. But certainly there's lots of jobs, particularly if you've done that criminology route, where you might be in the corrections area or more into policy and developing policies. And there's also fabulous jobs in industries, science industries, particularly if you're doing a lot of the you know, kind of analytical chemistry type thing, or genomics aspects. There's a lot of industry where you can be, you know, really getting good jobs in there as well. And particularly Michelle, he's got cultural industry because of there. So it's really a really broad range of graduate outcomes here too. Now you see this bit here about what banking, what's all that about? We actually get a lot of students, forensic science students are sought by places such as banking, because you develop those really good critical analysis skills and that record keeping, all those things, that attention to detail, that completely random industries that you wouldn't think about really value in graduates as well. So yeah, don't limit your thinking, that's for sure. So, you know, there's a lot of support from Deakin in terms of actually building up your career and actually helping you once you've left Deakin. So Deakin Talent is, they will assist people who are studying at Deakin, but also graduates of Deakin. And it can be something to really think about even early. They can help you with looking for jobs, putting together your resumes and your job applications. We actually have that in our forensic science degrees as well. We have units that support that, but also in some of our forensic units that we have aspects about applying for jobs and things, and people who have actually done that as part of the unit have gone on and got jobs as well. But there's also, you know, they run employer events where you're able to actually talk to potential employers and network that way. And I think the best thing about this is that actually once you've even graduated, they're still there to support you through that. So yeah, Deakin Talent, really, really good thing there. In order to get in, you don't need that real science background. It's really just your level in your English is the aspect there. It's good to know that you do enjoy science, or you have some capacity for it through school. What we do find, though, is people kind of struggle a bit with the chemistry side of things initially, or haven't necessarily had good chemistry experiences at school. But we do take that into account. We do have kind of support in place and special units in place to get you up to scratch to undertake that chemistry aspect to it. The ATAR there for Bachelor of Forensic Science at this stage is 60.55 and a bit higher there for the criminology as well. But it doesn't mean that, it's necessarily an easy course, but if you apply yourself, and we do offer a lot of support, and because we really do want to see you graduate, yeah, these are the kind of school leaver prereqs. Now, you might be like me. I came to forensic science late. I actually had other careers, and so I was not a school leaver as well. But we welcome you. There's lots of pathways in. Certainly in terms of if you've already got equivalent experience, or you've actually studying as a mature student, and absolutely love where I've ended up in forensic science as well. And we do have quite a few mature students as well, so please do come along. Don't let that be a barrier to you. Recommend if you're an international student, we do have really good support on campus for international students. So I'm sure that you'll be checking out these information sessions as well. So there's different, obviously, applications involved, and there'll be visas involved, but we do have a really good team who can inform you on that process and give you an idea of what's required there. And it will give you an idea also of the student life here at Deakin, because I know I mentioned earlier, people moving away from home from the first time, that can be quite an overwhelming experience. But obviously, if you're moving from a completely different country where the culture is very different, that a lot of support can be required there as well. But we certainly offer you that at Deakin too. You might be looking for scholarships. I've just got this link here that you might want to take note of. There's lots of different scholarships, particularly offered by industry and things like that as well. So if you do require one, I really recommend that you look up this link to see what might be there, and keep checking, because that will be updated as well. And you may actually be eligible for other sorts of financial assistance as well. So that link there can give you an idea of what financial support is available for you. So I thank you very much for joining me here. Join our Q&A session next if you've got any questions there. More than happy to answer them. So I will see you in there, but in the meantime, check out lots of other aspects of Deakin University to see if Deakin is the right university for you. I hope it is, because I would absolutely love to see you face to face on campus one day in one of our courses. I'll catch you very soon. See you later.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Forensic Science live Q&A session. I'm Associate Professor Michelle Harvey. I'm the Associate Dean for Teaching and Learning in the Faculty of Science, Engineering and Built Environment, and I look after the accreditation for our forensic programs and teach into the course. Today we have with us a number of our course team members. So we've got Annalisa Dirtle, who is our course director. We've got Xavier Conlon, who is our resident forensic chemist. And we also have with us Dr. Natalie Gass, who teaches into our forensic program as well. So today, if you'd like to ask a question, we're here to answer all things forensic, give you a bit of background to our program, and answer some questions that you might not have picked up answers to from the video. So you can have the opportunity to type a question into the Q&A section in the question panel on this page, and we'll try to get to all of your questions during this session. If there are unanswered questions at the end of the session, we do still have a team of experts that'll be available on web chat all day to help you with any of those questions, including any specific international student related admissions or fee queries. So please click on the web chat icon in the bottom right-hand corner on your screen after the session if you need to be connected with that team. So to get started today, I'm going to start to pass some questions around to our team. So what are the prerequisites for forensic science, Annalisa?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. There's not really prerequisites if you want to join our course. So essentially you have to have a certain standard of English, but in terms of maths and science, there's no prerequisite. We do kind of encourage you to think that you may actually have an interest in science and things like that as well, but certainly no formal prerequisites for our course.
I know one of the questions we often get is, do I really need to come in with some chemistry? Zave, did you want to answer that?
Sure, and I think it's goes to what Annalisa was saying, is we don't have the formal prerequisite, and that gives us a lot of opportunity to bring people in at a range of levels. And so that means that people might be needing to be upskilled in, say, for example, chemistry or mathematics or some other components that they need for their science. And so we're acutely aware of that. And so we have, for example, in chemistry, some different approaches and pathways depending on the level of chemistry that people come with, for example. And those people who are new to science, we certainly understand the challenges associated with that. And we have really clear plans in place for helping students through, particularly in that first year, of getting everybody up to speed on that base science that you need, to really extend yourself as a forensic science student in your latter years.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I've got another question about job prospects, and I'm going to throw this one to the team and anyone can answer. So are there good job prospects for forensic science in Australia, or is it more likely to be overseas?
I'll take that one first, if you like, Michelle. And obviously this is always a question that is at the forefront of everybody's mind, obviously, when you're joining this course. So we do want to say, first up, this is a science course with a forensic element to it. So ultimately, we want to train you to be exceptional scientists, because in order to be a good forensic scientist, you have to be a good scientist. Forensic is the application of the science. So while we do have a really good record, particularly of students going on to get employed in Victoria Police and Victoria Institute of Forensic Medicine, we do have students that go obviously to other jurisdictions within Australia. We've got people in Canberra and Sydney and Tasmania and places like that at the moment. And with the accreditation, we obviously do have good standing overseas as well. But we do encourage students to not just limit their thinking necessarily just to the forensic employment that you can get, because you will become good or exceptional, we hope, scientists. And so there's a really broad spectrum of jobs that you can get once you've done our degree. And some of these you won't even think about. So we have, because you'll become really good critical analysts, for example, we get forensic students targeted for jobs like banking and things that, require that real critical thinking and stuff. So I'll just say, though, that in terms of forensic jobs that become available, that can be quite cyclic. So in terms of Victoria Police, for example, if recently there was a change of legislation in terms of what samples would go on the DNA database, for example, so they employed a whole heap of forensic biologists. Then there might be a focus by government on targeting drug dealers and things. So there'll be a lot of jobs that come up in that. So it can be quite variable in terms of what's available when, but there's certainly a lot of opportunity for you after this course.
I think just one other thing with the team that we have here, we have lots of national and international connections. And so lots of students, may just want to be targeted and focused on a Victorian based career, but certainly have many students who go abroad, and it's really worth building or tapping into the networks that we have with the people who are involved in the team. And we've had many students who have actually gone interstate and abroad, and we can help articulate that on the way through for students.
I guess a follow-up to that, which has come through, relates to, can you give us some specific examples of where students or graduates from these programs have ended up?
Yeah, sure. In terms of Victoria Police, I'm just thinking off top of my head, we've got people in forensic biology. So that's very much the DNA area. We have them working in the drug area. So that's kind of, analysing drugs that are seized and things like that. We also have them in the arson and explosives area. So that's going out to obviously arson or suspected arson and bombed fireworks, all sorts of things there. We have them in the currently have them in the property management area. We have them in the hazardous drugs area. Fingerprints is a really big one at the moment as well. We do have them involved in toxicology, Victoria Institute of Forensic Medicine. We have quite a few employed with the Australian Federal Police, doing crime scene in both Sydney and Melbourne. And we do have others that are kind of more into, I think Xavier, you could probably talk a bit more about it in terms of the ones that have gone into kind of pharmaceutical or drug type pathways.
Yeah, sure. And look, before I get into that, we've had others that have gone to the equivalent of the Institute for Forensic Medicine, which is run through the Health Department in New South Wales, for example, and others that have gone on to work for like policy bodies in forensic science and doing a range of different jobs. Then, of course, as and this is equivalent skills if you're generating something, if you can analyze, do chemical analysis, that's a really valuable tool for the pharmaceutical industry, for example. And so we have many students who go on to work in sort of the chemical industry, but also we've had students based off the strong DNA, understanding of DNA, for example, go on to work in agricultural biotech and a range of other areas. So the skills are really broad and we've got really good examples. And I think just really clear from the list that you had there, Annalisa, that we do train students in a really broad range of areas of forensic science, and they do in the forensic field are getting jobs in those really cool areas too.
Thanks. That's a really great range of careers that people are heading into. So I guess one of the key things that always comes up is prac work. So students love prac work, and I always think that in forensic science, that's one of the best places to do prac work because forensic students usually learn best by doing. So I'm going to pass this one to Nat. How much of the work is lectures and how much is lab work in the units?
Yeah, so all of the forensics units that you do absolutely have great lab components. And some of those are hands-on learning how to actually analyse the evidence and do the skills. We also have a crime scene house facility, which means the students get to go in and actually think about how that you would look for evidence and how you would pick things up, how you collect things, how you decide what's important as well in a case. But obviously there is lectures because we do need to learn what we're looking for to begin with. So there's generally a really good split. Typically in any of the courses, you will have 2 to 3 hours of lectures a week, and then you will have a 3-hour prac class once a fortnight as well. So that gives you a chance to actually learn what you're going to be doing before you go into that hands-on task and actually try and see that theory in real life in process.
Thanks, Nat. I'm going to jump on that point about the crime scene house because I think that's one of the most intriguing parts of what happens in the course. Xavier or Annalisa, do you want to talk about how the crime scene house is used in teaching and what students can expect to experience there?
Yeah, we certainly, and I'll get Annalisa to start, I think, but we actually, what we term scaffold our coursework. So when you come in at the first year, you work with Annalisa all the way through to doing some third year activities with Nat. So I suppose maybe we can try to describe our way through that scaffold, Annalisa.
Yeah, sure. So obviously we have quite a few students that come in at first year level, and the house is in a mansion, so we can't accommodate all the students in there for a prac session. So what we do in first year is we actually do some 360-degree photography. So you can go through and you can search through the crime scene house, look for evidence on your computer. Then we could move into the second year units, and at that stage you're actually going in to the crime scene house, and you're generally in a smaller group because it's part of your practical component, and you will potentially be given a scenario, for example, or a bit of basic information, and you will go in there and you will assess what evidence you want, and like Nat was saying earlier, kind of packaging it, bringing it back to the laboratory, and then analysing it. So we've got the house itself that we can set up for different scenarios. We've got a car there, some outdoor area as well that we have there. We also have a room in there that we can wash down really easily, so that's what we use for our blood spatter analysis. So we do have that element to our course as well, where you go in there and you might want to interpret what's potentially happened, or at least suggest the mechanisms behind the different spatter that's actually occurred there as well. So by the time you get to that third year level, whether it's Nat's unit, you're actually, here's the crime scene house, you've got 6 hours to go in there and process it, and you've got to organise yourself as a team. And I just want to emphasise, just generally with the prac components, we make it as realistic as possible. So our prac procedures and everything else is based very heavily on Victoria Police protocols. So different jurisdictions do things differently, but because we are based in Victoria, we base ourselves on the Victoria Police protocols. And so in that sense, we do get you to work in teams. We do get you to follow all their analysis and their what, you know, how they package and what their vetting processes are and things like that as well. So that's kind of just, I guess, an overarching way of how we use the crime scene house and just the pracs generally.
And I think it's good that we have the stuff that complements that. So at that third year level, where we do it like a real workplace, and the communication's very important. And that idea of having the exact paperwork, for example, that the Victoria Police use is really important for us. And it goes beyond our course as well. And I think it highlights how good our facilities are, because we have had, so the police themselves come and do some of their own training in our facilities, do some photography training, the Geelong Crime Scene Group, and the dog squad is hoping to use it this year as well to do some training of their dogs, and they give us feedback that's actually a really good facility from that training perspective. So people who are in the field are also getting opportunities to be trained in there. So we really like that our facility is really good at exposing students to that learning environment.
Thanks, Dave and Annalisa. Just to extend on that, is there a way to become a crime scene investigator through this degree?
So again, that comes down to jurisdiction. So here in Victoria, you have to be a sworn officer to do be part of the major crime scene unit. So when I'm talking about major crime, I'm talking about those generally the crimes against people, such as homicide, sexual assault, those areas. So you are a sworn officer, and the non-sworn people that go to crime scenes are your arson and explosives people, and biologists if you're looking for doing some luminol testing. So that's when you spray an area, and if there's been blood there, it lights up like a Christmas tree, and also looking for semen at a crime scene. In other jurisdictions, it's unsworn people that go to the crime scenes and primarily do all that sort of thing. So we do have a lot of students actually go on to the academy and become police officers. There's certainly a real push within the police to actually have a degree, particularly in areas such as fingerprints and things. They do favour people who have degrees. Now, I don't want to say it has to be a forensic science degree, but there is obviously an advantage definitely to having that. So, you know, you can move to different jurisdictions if your passion is to be a major crime scene officer, but without actually going through the police as well. But that's very important to know, I think, because a lot of people come into this course thinking they can then go on and be Mr. and Ms. CSI, and it's not quite the case.
And certainly those in arson, they do love that aspect, that get to go out to the crime scene, and yeah, in the drugs area, there's some people that go out there as well. So I think what's important from what Annalisa is saying is there's opportunities to end up in jobs that will use those skills, and as with any job, you become a bit more focused, but we will help you understand that as you go through the degree, and including we help people go through that police pathway. People have been really successful through that, and then those, for example, going into the arson kind of area have been successful as well. And importantly, the arson guys and others come back and they teach into our course as well with guest lectures, so you get that experience from people who have done the course and gone through that exact process, that your pathway that you may be looking at for your career. The good thing is that in the course, it's fairly open in that first year, and there's lots of flexibility, and that we really bring you in to get a good understanding, and then you can pick and choose a little bit more later on in your degree as you go. So it's really good from the flexibility as you make those decisions.
Thanks, team. So I've got a question here from Mel. What are the benefits of completing a double degree with forensic science? So those of you listening may be aware we have a Bachelor of Forensic Science, but we also have a double degree, which is a Bachelor of Forensic Science and a Bachelor of and a Bachelor of Criminology. So I'll throw to the team. What are the benefits of the double degree over the single? How would you choose?
So from my perspective, I'll jump in a bit here. I actually did the undergrad degree with Deakin before stepping into a lecturer role, and the double degree wasn't an option at that time, but I did major in both forensic science and criminology. And for me, the criminology side just gave a really good overall understanding of the legal processes. So where the forensics degree really focuses on the science and inside the lab and what you're doing there, the benefit of having that criminology side is understanding the court processes a little bit deeper, or how police jurisdictions work and how all of that comes in. So ultimately, it really gives you a good sense of where the work fits in and how. And it also opens up, again, more job opportunities. It may be that the science hands-on side isn't quite what you wanted out of forensics. So having that criminology basis, you may find that you want to work more from an administrative point of view, or working more from a legal perspective in that way. So I think that's part of the benefit of the double.
And with the criminology side, people who do go down that pathway, and I think it's really good to come in with an open mind of, not knowing exactly what your strengths will be on the way through. We see that as a good part of a science degree, and you've got that flexibility I talked about before. Is people have gone into corrections and working in prisons. We've got good examples of people in that space taking on the strength with that criminology side, with that forensic flavour, and of course that forensic science helps them when they're working in those types of roles that Natalie was explaining.
So if you get, sorry,
I was just going to touch on it. It can help to have an idea of where you want to go a little bit, in terms of whether you really do want to work in a lab or whether you want to go a bit further on. Because if you feel that corrections or whatever isn't for you, then you kind of open yourself up to more opportunities if you can do both a chemistry and biology stream within forensic science as well. But in our first year, we do have science and we do have law papers at the same time. So that will probably give you a real sense of whether, you want that balance. And like Nat says, maybe the law aspect to you is really interesting and actually a pathway that you do want to take. So yeah, that first year might actually give you a real sense of that as well.
So let's say you get halfway through your Bachelor of Forensic Science or halfway through criminology and you decide you actually want to switch into the double degree. Is that possible?
Yes, anything's possible, Your Honour.
It certainly is possible, and we have a team of course advisors who work with all students. So it would depend. So you have to do a certain amount of units or subjects in your degree, and it just depends on the balance of how many you had done. So at any time you can talk with a course advisor or the team. We can help you with these types of discussions. It might mean that you might take an extra trimester or 6 months to finish the degree, depending on where you're at, but there's certainly flexibility there. And we have advisors specifically to help you with that. And that's where I think it's really important that you can come in and know that, especially up to that first year, it's very easy to do the switching around, but even later on, it's just a matter of mapping the units that you've done, those subjects. So it's certainly possible.
So obviously coming out of the COVID era, one of the big questions is about the student experience and whether you're studying online or on campus. So I have a question from Nathan here. Can you give us an example of what the online experience for forensic science is like and how it compares to an on-campus experience? So I think this is really reflecting on how much will you do? Can you do the whole lot online, or do you need to be on campus? What can you expect?
I think that's an excellent question, Nathan, and thank you for asking that, because I think that'll be at the forefront of a lot of people's minds. As Michelle kind of briefly mentioned earlier about that, we have an accreditation for our course. So we are obliged to have our students do a practical component and get those practical skills. And so it's not a course we can offer online completely. We have obviously COVID taught us as lecturers and things as a whole new way of teaching as well, and it's probably something that we might not have explored previously, and I think some elements of it that forced us to change the way we teach really worked for us. Generally, I can speak to the units I have, but we have kind of now pre-recorded lectures that you listen to and get involved in prior, and then we'll have an online session and also an on-campus face-to-face seminar, and those aren't recorded, but the online class is. So a lot of what is now happening is we have a lot more activity-based learning, a lot more discussion, a lot of that sort of stuff, which I think is massively beneficial because it actually gets you thinking rather than just kind of memorizing, I guess. And of course, we use that kind of discussion based around real cases and things like that, so it should be of interest to you. There's a lot of benefit on the on-campus because, at the risk of sounding a bit wanky, it's all about networking. Now, I used to work as a forensic scientist at Victoria Police, and I can tell you I got that job because I knew someone who could word me up on what the interview was going to be like, what it was really like working there. And that was somebody I was at university with. So it's really important to get to know your cohort. I think there's a great deal of satisfaction just being with people, just having that friendship and all the rest of it. And I think it's really that side of it that's really important. And also being able to come up to us after seminars and actually interact with us and get to know us and, have those chats with us. That we can do face to face and as you're kind of actually learning at the time and stuff. So I personally think there's a real benefit to that on campus, but I think there's also that benefit to that balance we've got now where it's partly online and partly on campus. There's certainly that flexibility for you for your learning.
And we, Nathan, certainly understand. So what we put online is stuff that you don't need to be here to get the value for, but when you're on campus with us, we really consider that and ensure that you get real value for coming up when we have you on campus. So we see that balance, I think. And there's another question just around the number of classes you have a week. And so I think it's just good to note that typically, as Nat kind of said, for the units, you typically do 4 units a trimester. And it varies a little depending on how you want to go through your degree. But most people would do 4, and they would have 2 to sort of 3 classes a week for 2 to 3 hours, and that would be typically that type of online environment, potentially a pre-recorded component and some chatting, and then some of that seminars where you would potentially come and do some of that workshops that Annalise was talking about, or your practical component of a couple of hours a fortnight, say 3 hours early on. So certainly the timetable is something that for students we're mindful of, and so that's about the number of hours, that times 4 a week that you'd be connected to the university.
Thanks. So I'm going to jump to a question about work placements. Obviously, everybody wants to experience during their degree what it's going to be like to be out in the workforce. So what work placement opportunities are available to gain extra experience during your degree?
So I'm going to jump in there. From a forensic perspective, we do have to be very clear. It's one workforce where it's very hard to get an actual placement, and that's because of the challenges associated with the nature of the work. But we're very mindful of the types of skills that you need to have an equivalent placement. So I mentioned before, the same chemistry skills are used in the pharmaceutical industry. So we would align a student with opportunities for placement in those types of places. Within your study, there's flexibility for a range of different sort of work placements. And so you can do that through particular units, but also what we call work integrated learning is embedded into the course as well. So that very specific training that goes into the course to develop that. And some students use their kind of workplace as a very research focused kind of placement opportunity. So it's like a research project, or ones where they can go out and do a placement associated with an industry.
Excellent. So I have a further question here. What are the study abroad opportunities within forensic science?
So I'll go, Annalisa.
No, I was just going to, not 100% familiar, to be honest, but there are, because I hate to say it again, accreditation. We do have some, anything that you take abroad that you want to kind of incorporate into our unit, kind of as replacing particular units that we might teach. There's got to be an element, so we've got to actually approve that and make sure that it is commensurate with what we're having. But I think Zave made a good point there as well. It's like the science we're doing is the science they do all around the world. So there is the potential to be going and learning chemistry in another country, for example, that would be exactly what we're kind of teaching here and things like that. So there certainly is the opportunity to do that study abroad that will still be able to be incorporated into your degree.
Yeah, and those course advisors, they can really help you with that and with the opportunities. And it's something that you do need to work with that team and us with, because each university is slightly different. The type of, we literally look at the units that you do elsewhere and see whether they're equivalent or not. But we actually encourage you to look into those types of opportunities. It really does add value to your course if you can do that. And yeah, we can certainly work with you if that's of interest to you for helping with the study abroad programs.
I'd add to that, we've had many students who have studied abroad. They'll often use their elective opportunities. So their elective opportunities are units where they can choose to do something that they think they're going to be really interested in, or is going to enhance their degree and their employability at their end of their program. And so they'll often go overseas and use some of these elective units to be able to gain some extra experience and pick up some really unique forensic units, potentially things like forensic photography, for example. Now, we've got 2 questions left. I'm going to quickly sneak this question in before our kind of bigger final one. Are there any scholarships available for forensic science?
So scholarship, Annalise,
No, you go, Dave, you go.
Yeah, so there's no specific scholarship for forensic science per se, but the university has a range of scholarship opportunities, and they go from based off students' marks all the way through to supporting regional students. So again, we have to, I suppose, work very specifically on that with you and through the course teams and the advisors on that. So there's some opportunities for scholarships, but not a forensic specific one, I suppose is a clear answer.
So the final question we've got for today is what makes the Deakin Forensic Science degree unique? Now, this one I'm going to ask the whole team to maybe give us a minute each. From my perspective, I would say that the team is a really important component. So I'm hoping that each member of the team can tell us what their specialty is and one point that they think makes this program unique.
Okay, I'll crack on then. So my area particularly is forensic biology. So I think it's important to note, probably at this point, it's just kind of digress a little bit, but all of us here, all of the teaching team have a really strong research component and research connection with industry as well. So the majority of my research is done in collaboration with Victoria Police and Victoria Institute of Forensic Medicine at the moment. So while my background is forensic biology, that is DNA, biological materials, and all the rest of it, I'm also exploring research in terms of microbial forensics and crime scene forensic based things as well, blood spatter, that kind of area. And the question about what makes it unique is we do have a unique team. We have these really unique facilities, and we do work very strongly with industry to give you that kind of real life experience. Having not actually done another degree in Australia, I don't know if I can't say what makes us unique as such, but I think that's a real benefit. But you have to think carefully about what things broadly in terms of the university you choose, what they can offer you as well, in terms of support services and connection and engagement with other people and with your lecturers and things like that as well, just as a piece of side advice. I'll stop now, I've gone over 1 minute.
I might add to that actually, because I think Annalise has brought up some really good points. So I actually did do another degree before I started at Deakin. So I've got quite a different, I guess, outlook on what Deakin offers, and the uniqueness is definitely the team environment that comes from Deakin and just the support that students really get. It's something that I hadn't experienced at the previous institution I'd been at, and I found that when I came to Deakin it was such a different environment. Everyone was really supportive and really there to help the students learn. We actually want the best for the students overall. And I don't think that's specific to forensics. I think that is university-wide. But the facilities and things that we have as well really build on that. But just because I missed it at the beginning, so my area is in forensic biology, specifically entomology, so working with maggots and flies, which I did with Michelle for about 6 or 7 years. And I've kind of gone more into the medical aspect of entomology as well, looking at the microbiome of the insects, but still have a lot to do with the decomposition side and postmortem interval. That's my minute.
Cool. And so from me, I work in chemistry, drug detection, and a range of things. And I always say that as an Essendon supporter, I'm fully qualified to deal with sports drug testing. And we have great facilities in the chemistry space and lots of money that have scored into our labs recently. And we're really excited that our equipment is world class. Beyond that, though, this degree, we've described that the forensic degree will set you up for a career in forensic science, but also it has the scope to set you up with jobs in a range of science areas. So it's really good from that perspective. What the forensic science degree gives you beyond the science degrees that you'd be otherwise looking at from that case is the communication side of things. So we put you through a moot court to be able to describe your science in layman's terms to a jury. We put you through, we have a lot of activities around presenting in a science in a really simple manner, like at a conference style through a poster. And so the communication side of the course is actually really strong. And I think that's what makes you a much stronger scientist, but also sets you up well for a career in forensic science.
And to finalise, so I'm an entomologist. I work in human decomposition and entomology, so using maggots to estimate time since death. And a lot of my research has been on the human decomposition research facilities. So I look at a lot of ways that blowflies can help in both medicine and veterinary science and forensics. I've been here for 11 years now. I think that the key thing I would say that sets the program apart is the team. All of our students comment that the team are really enthusiastic and passionate and invested in their students. So we love to get to know everybody and to work really closely with you all to make sure that you have a fantastic experience. And the program, as Xavier said, is a really great science degree with the added benefit of having accreditation. So the professional accreditation really matters because it gives you some quality assurance on the program that you're choosing. So if you're wanting to study science and you have a real passion for forensics, it's a great way to get some fantastic skills, but to have a really quality assured program. So thank you for all those questions today, and thank you to our team for all their answers. That's all the questions we have time for today. So it's been really great to see how many people are interested in forensic science and to be able to answer your questions. If we haven't got to your question, I do apologise. So please do join our all-day web chat. So you can find that at the bottom of your screen. And there's a team of staff there that are ready to answer your questions. If you'd like to learn more, you'll also find loads of really useful resources on the Deakin Open Day website. We really hope to see you at Deakin in the future. So thank you very much for coming to our forensics session and have a great day.